There's nothing that says we have to run a dynamic entry. And we're taking the approach that if it's not worth it, and let me just kind of expound on this a little bit, maybe you'll understand a little bit better where I'm going with this. My instructions to my staff were is if we run this warrant and something like happened in Detroit a few days ago happens, or one of our police officers is killed making this entry, we need to be able to look back on that and say, that person didn't die for something that wasn't worth it. We really need to examine why we're going in here, what our valid law enforcement purpose is, and we need to do it where it's worthwhile. And by that I mean the threat in the house or the dealer or whatever has to be the kind of threat that we can articulate that we need to deal with this now, and the only way to do it is dynamically. What I'm committing to you is that we're going to use other alternatives. Dynamic entry is going to be a last resort. We can still run search warrants and not run them dynamically. We can run them after the people leave. We can let people leave the home, we can stop them on traffic, arrest them, and then go back and run the warrant. We can wait for kids to go to school on a school bus. There's a lot of things that we can do. We can wait till people let their dogs out to go to the bathroom. I mean, and we're going to look at it that closely. That's the whole point of having the place under surveillance, so that we're aware to the best of our ability what's going on. And can I assure you that we won't shoot another dog? I can't tell you that. I can't control what these dogs are going to do when we get there, but we're going to do what we can. We're not going to go in there again and say, we didn't consider that. Yes, ma'am.
What kind of consequences would officers face if the protocol wasn't followed, this new protocol being developed?
Well, it would be everything up from being disciplined with time off to being terminated. And I guess that would be dependent on the rank of the officer. If it's a bad decision, I think that it's based on, we do the best we can, and when people are cutting corners, I can tell you right now, most of my staff's here, they're not going to cut any corners. I've made it perfectly clear, and they're in agreement. I think that's important, is that those commanders understand they didn't want this to happen either. It did. We all want to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Chief, I know you've got
Yes,
How confident are you that a change in policy will create a change in practice?
I am confident that the message I am sending to the department will cause substantive change in the way we handle these incidents. Folks, my department has gone through officers who weren't even involved, are being pilloried, in the media, people they encounter on the streets. I mean, it's not been pleasant for us either. We don't want it to happen again, any more than some of you do. So we're doing what we can within the parameters of the law, and I think we're even going above and beyond and trying to make sure it doesn't happen again. We don't want a similar incident. Yes, sir.
Chief, I know you've gotten a lot of feedback from the public, but have you been in touch with other police departments and speaking with them about this issue?
Absolutely. In fact, one of my assignments to Deputy Chief Dresner was to look at what other departments are doing as far as other options for dealing with animals on the warrants. We're going to learn what we can from other agencies. And best practices are out there. We intend to adopt them. So, yeah, we're going to ask other people. We're going to ask anybody who has an educated opinion. Yes, sir.
This is, by my account, the third press conference in 3 weeks or less on this. Are you at the point now where you anticipate further changes or adjustments to the policy as it evolves, or are you kind of at the point now where it's time to move forward and see where we go from here?
No, I think what I have implemented here is a climate of looking at what we're doing every time we do it, particularly as it relates to uses of force and things that got me before you today, and looking at those things critically on an ongoing basis. We can't afford to say, okay, this is the policy and we're going to live with it. We may have to make other changes to it. And hopefully it's not, we're doing it because of its best practices, and we're looking to do the best things, and that's our intent. Some of those things are going to slip by. We don't want another impetus to have to make changes like this again. We'd rather do it on our own. So we're going to be looking internally at our policies and our procedures, looking for best practices. As you know, I've asked the Police Civilian Review Board to review our policy. Their recommendations were welcome. And they may give us more fodder for thought for looking at other policies. And I have no issue with that. We will always try to, obviously my primary responsibility is to the public and my officers. I don't want anybody getting hurt, even somebody engaging in illegal activity. So I see this as positive steps in that direction to try to make sure those things don't happen.
Chief, do you?
Yes, sir.
Chief, 5 years ago, I think you're aware of this before you came, 61% of the voters in the city voted to make marijuana law enforcement the lowest priority. That was amended by the council to say it should be among the lower priorities, but that is the law in this city. That's the law on the books in this city at this time. Does that have any effect on the policy of the department? Does that impact in any way what you all do?
You know, I'm going to be very frank with you. I'm not sure how to accomplish what the ordinance says. I think that if I have a choice between, I'm a police officer out on the street, and I have a choice between catching somebody breaking into a warehouse and then cleaning it out and arresting somebody, and I'm assuming you're talking for a misdemeanor amount of marijuana.
Well, it doesn't say misdemeanor, it says marijuana law enforcement.
You know, I think my answer to you has to be that those more than misdemeanor amounts of marijuana are going to have to be made not a violation of state law. And I applaud your efforts. And I mean, you know, if we could get out of the business, I think there are a lot of police officers that would be happy to do that. Unfortunately, it is still a matter of law. And the shooting that happened right after the week right after this kind of came to the forefront was over marijuana. You know, so crimes of violence do occur because of marijuana. It's not. And you may make the argument that it's because it's not legal. Hey, you may be right. I don't have anything against it except that it's against the law. And as a police officer, I've sworn to uphold the law. And so prioritizing when we can, you're absolutely right. I think that we should concentrate on maybe methamphetamine or something like that that's more serious. But if we come across marijuana, it's still against the law. So I'm with you on the fight. I hope you're successful at some point, and we'll see how that goes. Yes, sir.
Do you think these policy changes are enough to satisfy the citizens, and if not, are you willing to make more? And then I had another question: is who will be paying for these new helmet cameras? Would that be the citizens, or will that be coming out of the police department's pocket?
Well, of course, it be paid for out of the police department's pocket, but it comes right through yours. You're a citizen of this city, and if you pay taxes, that's where we get our money. So yeah, citizens would be paying for it. But it's something that Tom and I have talked about, and we think that, what got us here was videotaping this one part of this. Our feeling from the beginning was what happened inside that house would be much clearer had all those officers had video cams where we could look at their point of view, what they were actually seeing. And, it'll give us more ability to review these cases after the fact and make improvements to how we do business.
As a citizen, I've become more and more concerned about the erosion of our civil rights. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering, is it or is it not a violation of one's civil rights with the knock and announce warrant to not give them a chance to open the door?
No, it's not.
So
it is not.
The fact that Hudson versus Michigan Supreme Court ruled that the violation upon entry is not enough to get evidence suppressed. In a criminal offense,
I would recommend to you that your argument's not with me. If the law changes and they make me aware of it, then that's what we'll enforce. Somebody else.
I was just wondering if you feel there's a need for a public apology because of this incident.
I think that I actually have no issue with apologizing for what happened that night, as long as it's made clear that the officers were acting under what they believed was proper protocol and procedure. So I guess what I would apologize for is that I didn't see the procedural things that I would have changed sooner. The unfortunate part about it was we seldom do until something happens, and that requires us to look at things a little bit harder. My staff and I are working very hard to make the Columbia Police Department one of the best departments in the country. We don't want this kind of thing to tarnish our image or our reputation. And we want the citizens of this city to believe we're one of the best police departments in the country.